Shrimad's divine grace, founder of ISKCON, Abhay, Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Granth Shrimadbhagavatam ki, their most merciful Lordship Shri Shrimadbhagavatam Hari ki, Shri Jagannath Shri Baladev Mai Subhadra ki, Shri Nathaji Shri Balagopa ki, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki, Nitai Go Premanand. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatam Vyasam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tojayam Dhiraya.
Tatujayamudiraye.
Nastaprayashu Bhadreshu.
Ashtaprayashu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtiki.
Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtiki.
Reading from Shrimadbhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Text 2.
Text 3.
3. Text 3. Nishamya
Nishamya.
Bhishmoktam
Vishmoktam.
Atachotoktam
Atachyutoktam.
Nishamya Bhishmoktam Atachotoktam
Nishamya Vishmoktam Atachyutoktam.
Pravrittam
Pravrittam.
Vijnana
Vijnana.
Vidutam
Tutam.
Vibrama
Vibrama.
Pavritta Vijnana Viduta Vibrama
Pravritta Vijnana Viduta Vibrama.
Sashasa Tam Indra
Indra.
Ivajitasraya Sasasagam Indra Ivajitasraya
Indra-ivajitashraya.
Paradyapantam
Paridyupyantam.
Anujanavardita
Janavadita.
Paridyupantam Anujanavardita Nisyama Vishmoktam Atachyutoktam
Tam attachyutoktam.
Pavrita Vijnana Viduta Vibrama
Brahma.
Sasasagam Indra Ivajitasraya
Ivajitashraya.
Paridyupantam Anujanavardita
Paridyupyantam Janavadita.
Nishamya Vishmoktam Atachyutoktam
Nisamya Vishmoktam Atachyutoktam.
Pravritta Vijnana Viduta Vibrama
Pravritta Vijnana Viduta Vibrama.
Sashasagam Indra Vivajitasraya
Sasasagam Indra-ivajitashraya.
Paridyupantam Anujanavardita
Paridyupantam Anujanavardita.
Krishna.
Nisamya Vishmoktam Atachyutoktam.
Nishamya Vishoktam Atachyutoktam
Pravritta Vijnana Vidhuta Vibrama.
Pravritta Vijnana Viduta Vibrama
Sasasagam Indra-ivajitashraya.
Sashasagam Indra Nivajitasraya
Paridupyantam Anujanavardita.
Paridyupantam Anujanavardita
Nisamya Vishmoktam Atachyutoktam
Nisamya Vishmoktam Atachyutoktam.
Pravritta Vijnana Viduta Vibrama
Sashasagam Indra Ivajitasraya Paridyupantam Anujanavardita Nisamya.
Nisamya.
After listening,
After listening,
Bhishma Uktam.
Vishnu Uttam.
What was spoken by Bhishma Dev.
What was spoken by Vishwadeva?
Ata,
Tata,
as also.
as also.
Achyutas Uktam.
Achyutam.
What was spoken by the infallible Lord Krishna.
What was spoken by the infallible Lord
Krishna.
Pravrita,
Pravrita.
being engaged in.
Being engaged in.
Vijnana,
Vijnana.
perfect knowledge.
Perfect knowledge.
Viduta,
Vidhuta.
completely washed.
Completely washed.
Vibrama,
Vibrama.
all misgivings.
All misgivings.
Sashasa,
Shashasa.
ruled over.
Ruled over.
Gam,
Gam.
the earth.
The earth.
Indra,
Indra.
the king of the heavenly planet.
The king of the heavenly planets.
Eva,
Eva.
like.
Like.
Ajita, Ashraya,
Ajita Ashraya.
protected by the invincible Lord.
Protected by the invincible Lord.
Paridhi Upantam,
Paridhi Upantam.
including the seas.
Including the sea.
Anuja,
Anuja.
the younger brothers.
My younger brother.
Anuvartita,
Anuvartika.
being followed by them.
Being followed by them.
Nisamya Vishmoktam Atachutoktam Pavrita Vijnana Vijutta Vibrama Sachasa Gamindra Ivajita Shraya Paridyupantam Anujanuvratita. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace by Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Yudhisthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge, because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Please repeat. Maharaj Yudhisthira,
Maharaj Yudhishthira,
after being enlightened
after being enlightened
by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev
by what was spoken by Vishwadeva
and Lord Sri Krishna,
and Lord Sri Krishna,
the infallible,
the infallible,
engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge,
engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge,
because all his misgivings
because all his misgivings
were eradicated.
were eradicated.
Thus he ruled over the earth and seas,
Thus he ruled over the earth and seas,
and was followed by his younger brother.
and was followed by his younger brothers.
Maharaj Yudhisthira, after being enlightened by what was spoken by Bhishma Dev and Lord Sri Krishna, the infallible, engaged himself in matters of perfect knowledge, because all his misgivings were eradicated. Thus he ruled over the earth and seas and was followed by his younger brothers. Report by his divine grace by Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The modern English law of primogeniture, or the law of inheritance by the firstborn, was also prevalent in those days when Maharaj Yudhisthira ruled the earth and seas. In those days, the king of Hastinapur, now part of New Delhi, was the emperor of the world, including the seas, up to the time of Maharaj Parikshit, the grandson of Maharaj Yudhisthira. Maharaj Yudhisthira's younger brothers were acting as his ministers and commanders of state, and there was full cooperation between the perfectly religious brothers of the king. Maharaj Yudhisthira was the ideal king or representative of Lord Sri Krishna to rule over the kingdom of earth, and was comparable to King Indra, the representative ruler of the heavenly planets. The demigods, like Indra, Chandra, Surya, Varuna, Vayu, are representative kings of different planets of the universe. And similarly, Maharaj Yudhisthira was also one of them, ruling over the kingdom of the earth. Maharaj Yudhisthira was not a typical unenlightened political leader of modern democracy. Maharaj Yudhisthira was instructed by Bhishma Deva and the infallible Lord also, and therefore he had full knowledge of everything in perfection. The modern elected executive head of a state is just like a puppet because he has no kingly power. Even if he is enlightened, like Maharaj Yudhisthira, he cannot do anything out of his own goodwill due to his constitutional position. Therefore, there are so many states over the earth quarreling because of ideological differences or other selfish motives. But a king like Maharaj Yudhisthira had no ideology of his own. He had but to follow the instructions of the infallible Lord and the Lord's representative and the authorized agent, Bhishma Deva. It is instructed in the Shastras that one should follow the great authority and the infallible Lord without any personal motive and manufactured ideology. Therefore, it was possible for Maharaj Yudhisthira to rule the whole world, including the seas, because the principles were infallible and universally applicable to everyone. The conception of one world state can only be fulfilled if we can follow the infallible authority. An imperfect human being cannot create an ideology acceptable to everyone. Only the perfect and the infallible can create a program which is applicable at every place and can be followed by all in the world. It is the person who rules and not the impersonal government. Hello. Whose music is going on here? Krishna. The government is perfect. Oh, if the person is perfect, then the government is perfect. If the person is a fool, the government is a fool's paradise. That is the law of nature. There are so many stories of imperfect kings and executive heads. Therefore, the executive head must be a trained person, like Maharaj Yudhisthira, and he must have the full autocratic power to rule over the world. The conception of a world state can take shape only under the regime of a perfect king, like Maharaj Yudhisthira. The world was happy in those days because there were kings like Maharaj Yudhisthira to rule over the world. Om Jnanatamandasya Gyananjana Samadaya Chakshusundritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Here we are seeing understanding being given about the position Maharaj Yudhisthira was holding and the need for him to be perfected. And that was by guidance being given to him directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And in this day and age, we have Krishna's words the same words he gave to Maharaj Yudhisthira for us to follow. We have the entirety of Bhagavad Gita. And this also reveals to us how true Srila Prabhupada's words establishing that these teachings of Shrimadbhagavatam are the law books for the next 10,000 years. There are no superior injunctions given in any nation on the planet superior to that knowledge being given by these teachings by self-realized souls. And we're seeing that the very qualification for one then to hold the position of an emperor, he has to have complete knowledge and full surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And you're not going to get that from the mundane colleges of the world, who are not being ruled by and governed by people who are self-realized. Self-realization, in fact, is not even recognized by any of the leaders of the world as a qualification, because they don't even know what self-realized means. These scriptures are being given to us to restore us to our original eternal station with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Also revealed in this verse is that Indra and these other representatives of the higher planetary systems were there present. And as such, Maharaj Yudhisthira was representative of the earth amongst them. So this is evidence that there are councils of emperors of other planets as well around the universe, who, being controlled by the Supreme Person because of their surrender, are submitting themselves under the rule of Indra, who is in charge of the universal laws and manners that will govern and determine all the lives of the souls that have entered into the material universe. And the laws governing the universe, which we have. Bhagavatam is stating that it is the law of the universe, and that by its application then, those participants who are being guided by the authority of the universe. So Maharaj Yudhisthira, holding a position above and beyond that being realized as ever being held by the magistrates of the world, who are all in total ignorance of the very history of the world, are themselves not realizing of the qualifications to be in the position of an emperor of the world. Not only that, but they do not realize that there is counsel, universal counsel, of which this verse is pointing out. Indra is the head of. He's the head of the Universal Council of all planetary systems. So this reveals to us far superior forms of intelligence have been used within this material universe since time immemorial. All the major, so-called major advancements we have been experiencing over the last 100 years or more are all primitive in comparison to that which was given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to those leaders in position of rulership over the entire universal system. So our perspective of where we stand as far as the universe is concerned requires us to break down our false egos and know that we are very minuscule. In this universe, we are a very small planet. And we have no connect, we've been cut off from the communication, the councils of the universe. We don't have access to that now. That's what Gayatri is giving us, restoring us to. And this vision of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is a perfect example of see how in the spiritual world, everything is spoken in song. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in this Guru Vandana, it's actually Sundayarti. What is that called? Gaurastika, yeah. He has seen Lord Chaitanya being worshipped by all the representatives of the universe, Lord Shiva included, Lord Brahma, Lord Indra. So they are all themselves recognizing the superiority of Lord Chaitanya's authority in the entire universe. So if they are themselves worshiping Lord Chaitanya, what is that saying about now what the situation is in the universe? There is a kirtan going on universally that these teachings, we are, as has been registered by Srila Prabhupada on this planet, an international society. This verse reveals to us that we are also incorporated into a universal system of law, of legal attachments. By binding ourselves to the Krishna consciousness movement, we become a member of the universal force of God in this universe. There is a kirtan that's going on throughout the universe since Lord Chaitanya has come into the universe. So this planet had his pastimes in it, was observed by those who were, Lord Indra here is explained as having been in a position to be able to observe the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya only 500 years ago. And for them, as the demigods keep track of time, because of the way they are situated in the universe, this was just 500 of their days ago. So it was like a year and a half ago. Lord Chaitanya came in the eyes of the demigods, and having histories themselves, they would to bring again union back. But we can't even get along with ourselves. And the first thought about alien invasion, we make them our enemies in our mind immediately because of the fact that they have superior powers. But this mentality is evidence of the way we are treating one another. In Krishna consciousness, we are taught to see everyone on an equal basis, every form of life, as having qualitatively the same, being made of the same substance as the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we don't see just members of our own race, or members of our own nation, or members of our own planet, even, as superior because we are members of this planet, or because we are members of this race, or because we are members of this nation. This is all false ego. And this false ego is what has to be broken by every member of the planet who is on the planet, in order for us all to be able to experience true peacefulness and communion with one another, to work together with a common cause. That being to spread love of God in its completeness. And love is not limited to its own kind. It is the nature of love to include all. It is all inclusive. But we are not able, as a nation of people, I speak, around the world, all the nations are finding themselves individually, we say, believing themselves to be independent of all the other nations of the world. These are all lines drawn by the histories of the peoples and their interaction with one another. But God, the supreme, all-knowing, lawgiver to all forms of life, to all cultures of all peoples, for all history, has a plan for all peoples of all nations to experience His presence, to experience the superiority of His spiritual guiding laws, made for us to return to His dwelling. And in the process of taking part, we create an atmosphere of peace, love, and harmony with one another that, when practiced by all nations, will bring to the planet an experience of wholesomeness, health, well-being, which is the result of love. comes the fulfillment of everything that all human beings are longing to experience. But when we divide ourselves against each other, we divide ourselves and separate ourselves from the true revelation of the all-inclusiveness of God, as most call the Supreme, our Father. We have many fathers. We have many forefathers. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that those who worship the forefathers, what is worship? We take the spoken words they have given and apply them to our lives. Those who follow those of the forefathers will go to the planets that the forefathers have ascended to. Those who take the words of the spiritual truths of the Supreme Person, the person from whom all knowledge, all substance, all truth, all wisdom, from whose mouth all wisdom is coming, whom we call Krishna, then the way will be made for that soul who applies the principles coming out of Krishna's mouth will go back to Krishna's abode. So the same principle that applies in Krishna consciousness to those who follow the principles of Krishna apply to those who are following principles of others who are in subordinate positions to Krishna. And as such, they are situated according to that which Krishna has allowed them to ascend to only. There are many concocted ways that man, in their sometimes good intentions, hoping to be able to give to humanity something better. But all the concoctions of man's minds have not the power that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has. But he is empowering those who are submitting themselves to his will to be able to give full knowledge for us to be able to become completely free from the control of the powers that are ruling this universe. What is that? Even free from karma. It's a very powerful statement to say. There is such a process that can free people from the laws of God that God has established in the world in order for human beings to be able to be punished for their wrongs and rewarded for their so-called good. Right? These laws exist. They exist for guidance. But when the lawgiver comes to town, which he did, depending on how you're keeping track of time, he came here a year and a half ago or so, or 430 some years ago, Lord Chaitanya, bringing this process for the entire age of Kali Yuga, 427,000 years. And although the knowledge has gone now entirely around the planet, The knowledge I'm speaking of is the knowledge of the process of the chanting of the Maha Mantra, the great mantra for deliverance. And what is that deliverance from? We're being delivered from the accumulated result of the millions and millions and millions of lifetimes, not years, but lifetimes that we have spent in this universe accumulating reactions with every act we take part in our daily activities. If we are not taking part in that spiritual energy that is free from the reactions of the material energy, we are going to get the resultant reaction automatically. Reactions are taking place even if we do take part in spiritual energy. There is also action related to spiritual energy. That action related to the spiritual energy, when the soul itself comes under the control of, puts itself under the control of, by agreement to the supreme powers that be. When we surrender to the supreme powers that be, those powers surrender their control over us, because now the powers that be is that which has established those laws. So by following the instructions of the one who has established all law that governs all souls, then they become free from the effects of those laws that are guiding those who are bound by the laws of the material energy. And now surrendering to the control of the Supreme Person puts them automatically into the spiritual energy that is not affected whatsoever by the material energy of the world. We are spiritual energy. And when we choose to mix with the material energy, thinking in our minds, the untrained mind believes itself capable of finding superior experience than the substance it is made of, the soul, searching for that which it is not, will not find the equivalent of the experience of the substance that the soul is itself. It has nowhere, it has no need to go anywhere to find the substance it is made of. And the formula to find it is given in this Maha, the great mantra for deliverance. And now, why do we need to be delivered? Because we are all facing that last day we will spend on this planet, and seeing every day that there are souls passing into that realm beyond this world. We need to train the mind to know we are also going to come to that point in our experience of existence when we will be leaving this world. And this Maha, the great mantra of deliverance, will be that means of experiencing at that time the complete deliverance from the total subjection we have put ourselves into by desiring these forms that we have been put into, which are inferior to that form which we are, to that original form that we came from, that we were in when we were with God, in the eternal realm. God doesn't force us to go back. It is by the development of our will to want to go back that we develop by experiencing the Supreme, the presence of the Supreme in the recitation of the mantra, the great mantra for deliverance. This mantra is powerful enough to take us and remove us from the material realm, enabling the consciousness to experience the spiritual realm simply as a sound vibration, because it is sound vibration that is used as communication in the spiritual world as well. So there is communication that goes on in the spiritual world as sound vibration. And we are being given the means to be able to communicate with one another and to be able to experience that very quality of sound that is created in the spiritual world. That's what this chanting is. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. See, this mantra, when it is fully realized, we have evidence from the scriptures that all the mantras given by inspiration of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are so powerful that the participant then, taking it as God Himself, knows that there is nothing else required for the continuance of our existence. That name has in it everything. Food, breath, life itself is contained in this name and its sound. It is the food spoken of by the person they call Jesus Christ. I know him to be Isha, Usha, and Yeshua. Just as God has given you many, many different experiences in life. All of those experiences that you had that were given to you by God for you to be able to experience His presence, there is a name for. Every single experience you have had in life with God, there is an experience that can be named. And that level of experience you had with that communion with God is a level of love. And these various levels of love are described, Haribhakti Vilas, given to us by Sanatana Goswami, reveals these various levels of love of God. And this Maha Mantra is given specifically for us to be able to experience what those levels are. And so this is why so significantly important it is for the soul wanting liberation from the pangs and the whips of birth, death, old age, and disease, needs to take as an experience. If I was describing a fruit to you, you would not know the taste till you put it in your mouth. I could describe with many, many words. But this taste can be tasted by the sound created by the tongue of Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram,
Hare Hare.
This that is given in this age is given as a communication by God to humanity, as an invitation to commune every day. And it is an open invitation every moment. If you wake up in the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in your morning, God is listening with you to hear you create this sound vibration. Because to Him, it is non-different from the playing of His own flute. And in the spiritual world, those who hear the sound of God's flute find total satisfaction and are immersed in an ocean of love of God. And that is the opportunity being offered to us through the chanting of this name by time enough to be able to fully realize the effect of it and the benefits of it as well. That's what all these literatures are being given to us in this age for, is to bring us to the realization of the power, the significance, the pureness of God's name. And He has millions and millions of names, everyone significant to the very specific relationship it develops in the soul that speaks the names of God. For the purpose, they are made to recognize the quality of God's personality. 64 qualities of God's personality in perfection. Everything we're longing to experience can be found in the person of God. And that's the available process being given to us. If you have a tongue, you can create the sound of the name of God. If you don't have a tongue, you have a mind. If you don't have a mind, you're not alive. So, if you're alive, you have a mind. In the mind, you can conceive. You can conceive of activities in the mind. And every thief that conceives of those acts to engage in as a thief, he could at the same time be engaging in to gain eternal benefit by simply using the mind to create the sound of God's name. And you can live in that consciousness all the time. You can live in the thought of God's name. God's name can become so close to you, how can I say, so desired by you, for that to become your constant experience. You want to know power? You want to know holiness? You want to know blessed, sanctified peacefulness of mind? And you want to know God? And the only way we can know God is by knowing God's name. Doesn't that make sense? How can I know you if I don't even know your name? Well, first and foremost is knowing that in God's name is contained everything there is. Everything came from God, and God's name is not different from God. So when you recite God's name, you are in fact stating the origin of everything. The sound of God's name, because it is God. It's not different from God. But to be brought to this realization requires that we develop a relationship with that name by reciting that name. And as the name becomes more and more glorious to us, because our experience in life as well, we find, becomes more and more profound and experienced by every day, taking to heart the teachings God gives and holding them in the highest esteem, so that by helping others realize the import, the purport, the truth, the absoluteness of God's words, when human beings come to realize this, they gain access to the greatest, potentially unlimited treasure that this human form of life has to experience. It's 9 o'clock in the morning where I am, so I have to end this class. But for me, class goes on all day long. Every moment is a learning experience. If we are exposing ourselves to transcendental literature, to transcendental communication and association with other forms of human life that are sharing the same realizations that God is giving us every day, every moment of our lives, as we're open to it. We have to open our minds to the workings of God, to be able to see what God is doing. And that will give us purpose of life and desire to continue to perfect our lives. Because as human beings, as imperfect as we are, there is no end to the development that we can take part in the perfecting of our lives. There's perfect, and there's more perfect. So there's no end. And we have as much as we can absorb. In Shrimadbhagavatam, we can spend 100 years and still at the end of that time realize there is more to be absorbed than we previously realized was available. This path is endless, and the fruits and the results of applying its precepts are eternal. My hope, my prayer, my wish for you, everyone listening to this, is that you may experience pure love of God in your heart to the extent that nothing else matters for you, and that your life may be sublime and full of ecstasy and joy and bliss beyond your ability to explain it. All glories to your service. Shrimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. May this ISKCON movement be known by every soul for the value that it has to offer human society at large. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.